Part 10. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, Mocnu. Chapter 91. What is that? A ball of red fire was reflected in everyone's eyes, and it was so dazzling even in the broad daylight. The object wrapped in the dazzling red fire was finally seen clearly by many awakened people. On the distant horizon, a huge convoy of punk motorcycles was seen. One punk motorcycle after another was like a galloping horse on the grassland, accompanied by the violent roar of the steam engine, and was running wildly on the abandoned asphalt road. In the middle of this obviously modified punk convoy, a fiery red-painted motorcycle was roaring ahead of the rest of the vehicles. What was surprising was that behind this group of modified wild motorcycles, there was actually a blazing fire. And behind the wheels of the fiery red steam locomotive in the middle, a huge, dark green headless zombie was dragged by an iron chain. The head of the giant zombie had been cut off long ago, but the body was still struggling frantically, rubbing a dark groove violently on the asphalt ground, showing its tenacious vitality. What's more terrifying is that the closer you get, the more terrifying the energy fluctuations emitted by this headless zombie are. The dark green blood splashes on the road surface, and immediately corrodes the road surface into deep holes. The headless zombie tied to the back of the car turned out to be a powerful S-level existence. Woohoo! The unbridled wild voice came from the front of the car, and a thin and dark young man was seen sitting on the red motorcycle in the front. He was wearing a black leather jacket, revealing his strong shoulders and arms, and a thin scar at the left corner of his eye added a bit of fierceness to his ordinary face. The young man roared, and the roar of the engine became deafening. Everyone clearly saw that the jet of the engine was not spewing black steam, but a fierce red flame. Once the flames were released, they burst out like the breath of a giant dragon, and all of them sprayed on the headless zombie as if they had life. The headless zombie was burned by the strong flames, and its struggling body became more violent, but the flames bit the zombie's flesh and blood like a thorn in the bone. In just a few breaths, the headless zombie's body burned into a sticky charred corpse with a faint green luster. Roar! Almost at the moment when the fiery red flames burned the headless zombie into charcoal, a roar of zombies came from the back of the convoy. One by one, the terrifying zombies with hideous faces followed closely behind the motorcycle team, roaring and running towards the Yuhei base. The strong stench of the corpse group was clearly audible even from hundreds of meters away. Looking at their number, they were no less than the mutant zombies they encountered in the Lannan City Club building. Several of them had strong fluctuations on their bodies, and they were top-level A-level heretics. The speed of the zombies was extremely fast, but the steam locomotive they were chasing had obviously been modified in some strange way. The engine was roaring, and the tires were rubbing against the ground, producing sparks. It was running even faster than some mutant zombies that were known for their speed. Each steampunk locomotive had a red flag on the front of it, with the rising black dragon outlined in black paint. The black dragon on a red background was the symbol of the Shenlong Society under Wang Daipen, one of the three guardians of the Yuhei base. The punk cars were speeding on the asphalt road, accompanied by billowing flames, and followed by a black tide of zombies. The extremely spectacular scene stunned everyone's eyes. This scene looked like this team of more than 100 people was having a bonfire carnival with the zombies in the flames. Soon, this flamboyant team had already rushed to the front of the base wall. And the man in a leather jacket on the red locomotive also jumped off the locomotive in an instant. He bent his knees and squatted, took a breath, and his big mouth bulged up like a blower, as if there was some explosive energy brewing inside. The convoy behind him stopped behind the man in the leather jacket, not worrying that the man in the jacket would have to resist the ferocious zombies alone. At this time, the zombies were less than 100 meters away from them, and in a few breaths they would completely invade this human safety zone called Yuhei. The man in the jacket had a crazy look in his eyes, and he jumped high into the air. A ball of fire appeared under his feet to help him float in the air, and a beam of red, Thick flames like magma sprayed out of his mouth. The flame expanded and gushed in an instant, like a torrent of fire waves pouring down on the zombies in front of him. Countless zombies were burned by the scorching flames that seemed to fall from the sky. They were unconscious and began to scream and roar wildly at this moment. Their ferocious facial features and dancing figures in the flames made them look like loyal believers of fire at first glance. Countless low-level zombies could not even resist the high temperature and raging fire like a wave, and were directly burned to ashes. A few high-level zombies jumped out of the sea of fire, their bodies were burnt, and they grabbed the jacket youth with sharp teeth and claws as if they did not feel any pain. At this moment, a grim smile appeared on the slightly dark face of the jacket man. A ball of fire suddenly exploded around him, and his body began to burn violently like a flame. Strangely, the jacket man's clothes were obtained from nowhere, and the fireproof effect was surprisingly good, and the leather did not seem to be burned at all. I saw that his arms swelled several times in an instant, which was very different from his thin body. The swollen arms were covered with flowing fiery red gullies, as if there were countless hot magma that was about to erupt and was accumulating power. The jacket man was surrounded by fireworks, and his arms like magma swung violently. This blow with flashing flames was like a meteorite burning the ground and a volcanic eruption. The first few A-level zombies that rushed over were directly smashed by the explosive fist, and even the several mutant zombies next to them were burned by the raging flames, and their bodies turned into charcoal in an instant. But the jacket man's punch was not over yet. The fierce fist accompanied by the flames condensed into a hideous dog head in the air, and with the momentum of the sky river pouring back, it blasted towards the remaining zombies behind. Dog bite flame breath. A huge fireball like nuclear fission rose directly from the flat ground, and the residual heat of the explosion made it difficult for people to open their eyes. After the explosion, everyone opened their eyes, and what they saw was that the originally flat road was now full of burning flames. The fire was still raging and expanding outwards, with no sign of calming down. And those crazy zombie monsters were now burned into dregs. Everyone turned their eyes to the thin figure of the man in the jacket, but no one dared to underestimate this dark man with an unremarkable appearance. Because he was the strategic weapon of the Yuhei base, the fire elementalist known as Scorching Sun among the three guardians, and the head of the Shenlong Society, Wang Deipen. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the Flame Demon Lord. Author, Mo Xian Yu. Chapter 92. Looking at Wang Deipen's mighty display, he looked like the god of fire descending to the earth, and everyone's eyes were filled with admiration. Mu Qiu looked at the figure of the man in the jacket, and a red light flashed in the depths of his pupils. Flame power. This Wang Deipen was actually an elemental awakener, and his attribute was the fire element that best matched Mu Qiu's body, the flame demon. Even his level was the top level of destruction. Mu Qiu licked his lips, and he had a hunch that Wang Deipen would be a delicious delicacy. He could feel that the flame demon in his body was also longing for brother. When Wang Hao saw the thin figure of the man in the jacket, he ran to Wang Deipen like a dog seeing a bone. Wang Deipen looked at the countless potholes on the road that were still burning with flames, and the burnt residue of the corpse was blown away by the wind and smoke, and the madness in his eyes gradually faded. Boring. Wang Deipen patted the dust off his jacket, with a look of disdain on his face, and took out a cigarette from his pocket. Wang Hao took out a lighter and lit it at the right time. Wang Deipen could naturally light it himself with his supernatural power, but this was related to Wang Hao's attitude. At this moment, a burst of fierce applause sounded all around. It turned out that the awakened people who got off the motorcycle and the gangsters around Wang Hao gathered together and applauded Wang Deipen's powerful methods. Amid the sparks, Wang Deipen said to Wang Hao, "How is it? Have you encountered any tricky ideas during my absence?" Wang Hao shuddered, and he instantly remembered the death of Jin Xiang and Ma Kun and his group without any news. He knew that this matter was inseparable from Wei Linger and his group, but how could he dare to explain this matter to his elder brother Wang Daipen? He stayed in the base and did a lazy job of eating and drinking for free. If he couldn't even do such a small thing, wouldn't it be even more ridiculous to tell others? Wang Hao was a second-generation ancestor who was just eating and waiting to die, but he also claimed to be a second-generation ancestor with brains. Let's not talk about others for now. Jin Xiong was a capable man beside Wang Daipen, and he was sent out by himself and died inexplicably. If Wang Daipen knew about this, he would definitely beat him up, and he might even withdraw the people who stayed with him in the future. Thinking of Wang Daipen's ruthless methods, Wang Hao unconsciously chose to escape. Of course not, brother, don't worry, what mistakes can there be with me in the base? But in his heart, he was determined to get this place back in private. Wang Daipen nodded, not caring much. His most important elite soldiers were basically sent to his side, and those who stayed with Wang Hao were a group of useless hooligans. Wang Daipen, holding a cigarette in his mouth, turned around and saw Xiao Hanyan and her group standing in front of the base wall. Wang Daipen had a smile on his face. He pushed his men aside and walked quickly to Xiao Hanyan, revealing his yellow teeth. "Oh, I didn't expect you to wait for me here in person this time, Hanyan. How about it? Have you figured out that you want to be my woman?" Xiao Hanyan glanced at Wang Daipen lightly, and her tone was cold and unquestionable. "Don't get me wrong, the purpose of my coming here this time is not for you." Xiao Hanyan, who was dressed in a military uniform and had an indifferent face, walked forward slowly, and the white military boots under her feet made a light sound when they stepped on the ground. Xiao Hanyan raised her cold white hand, and a deep blue light surged in the depths of her eyes, and then a group of water drops slowly rose in the palm of her raised hand. The crystal-like fluorescent blue mist flashed at Xiao Hanyan's fingertips, and the pool of water drops was constantly expanding and blending. Xiao Hanyan flicked her jade finger, and the ball of water that had expanded to the size of a basketball was instantly hit to the scorched area in front. "Is this the element system?" Mu Qiu narrowed his eyes and looked at the Queen of Jade Sea seriously. "No, although the way of releasing water flow is somewhat similar to the element system, the energy sent and received is weak, and the offensive is not strong. It is far from the level of the element system that can destroy the world with ease. This should be a special mutation system." After a little thought, Mu Qiu simply analyzed the source of Xiao Hanyan's superpowers. "I saw that the ball of water bombarded the ground and scattered, and after a moment it condensed and rose again. This time, the originally crystal blue water ball turned into a strange green, as if it contained some kind of violent toxin that would kill people immediately." Mu Qiu could see that this ball of water actually contained the zombie virus left after the zombies were burned to ashes. As Xiao Hanyan pulled, the poisonous water ball was quickly compressed into a round water droplet the size of a thumb. The beautiful Ice Queen tapped her jade finger lightly, and a pool of water mist appeared on the devastated empty road. The seemingly weak water mist extinguished the blazing fire on the asphalt road in an instant, and the air seemed to be moist. Feeling the moist water mist attached to the body surface, Mu Qiu looked at the ice beauty in white military uniform. Based on the hand that Xiao Hanyan showed, although she controlled the energy very well, Mu Qiu could still feel that she had not broken through to the level of destruction. In other words, Xiao Hanyan still has a destructive trump card. While Mu Qiu was still thinking secretly, Xiao Hanyan's palm had slowly closed, and the water mist in the air on the ground also dissipated. Holding a thumb-sized dark green round bead in her hand, Xiao Hanyan turned her head and glanced at Wang Daipen with a cold look in her eyes, and said in a cold tone, "The remaining virus after burning will invade the bodies of ordinary survivors in the base, causing a large-scale plague infection and causing unrest in the base. The unextinguished flames will also endanger the safety of the base. Such a loud noise will attract the attention of the surrounding corpses. This is not the first time that a similar situation has occurred. If you still claim to be a part of Yuhei, you'd better put away your pathetic self-righteousness." After saying that, the Ice Queen who was famous in Yuhei left only a slender back to Wang Daipen, and left with Ji Yufeng, Wei Ying, and others. There seemed to be a cold aura around Xiao Hanyan that kept strangers away. Even when facing Wang Daipen, the guardian, she did not use any metaphors. There was no strict order, just the most harsh words in the most ordinary tone. But even this most common and hurtful words did not sound annoyed to Wang Daipen, a powerful awakener. Wang Daipen grinned, his dark face was still arrogant, and a hint of obsession flashed in his eyes. Yes, it's this cold expression that keeps people away from you. You are getting more and more attractive. For Wang Daipen, conquering Xiao Hanyan is the most pleasurable thing. Looking at Xiao Hanyan's departing back, Wang Daipen's eyes showed a wild beast-like madness, and he laughed. Xiao Hanyan, you are my woman, you can't run away, no one can take you away. Wait, one day you will crawl at my feet and beg me to have sex with you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 93. I didn't expect so many unexpected situations to occur in this operation. In a tall building in Yuhei Base, Xiao Hanyan was sitting at her desk, listening to Ji Yufeng's mission report. Although the heterogeneous church base in Lannan City was successfully destroyed at a heavy price, what really concerned Xiao Hanyan was the mysterious organization that suddenly appeared behind. The mysterious Eternal Night Dynasty, the terrifying ghost General Shura, and the group of black-clothed ninjas who silently seized other people's superpowers, all these phenomena revealed the strength of this mysterious organization. Wei Ying, do you know any news about this Eternal Night Dynasty? Xiao Hanyan turned to look at Wei Ying, who led a guard team in charge of investigation work. Many important information about the outside world was transmitted and received by the guard team, which was an important eye and ear of Yuhei Base. Wei Ying, with a resolute face, shook his head. I have never heard of the name of this organization in other survivor bases. It should be a new mysterious organization. Xiao Hanyan frowned slightly. Just based on the killings committed by the Yanjai dynasty since its appearance, she knew that this organization was an enemy rather than a friend to Yuhei. It might be another evil existence like the heterogeneous religion. Xiao Hanyan asked, how strong is the masked man who calls himself Shura? Ji Yufeng gently pushed the frame of his glasses, and a light screen flashed on the lens. I had a brief fight with Shura. He is very strong and his strength is not inferior to mine. Hearing this answer, Wei Ying, who knew Ji Yufeng's strength, was also moved, and his face was solemn. This is just the tip of the iceberg of this organization. It seems that Yuhei will face a great enemy again. Xiao Hanyan thought, it is not clear yet about the relationship between the Eternal Night Dynasty and the alien religion. If we can provoke a dispute between these two organizations, it will be the situation we are most happy to see. Just then, Xiao Hanyan noticed that Ji Yufeng's state was a little wrong, so he asked, Ji Yufeng, what are you thinking about? Always looking at the white death god who was looking out the window turned around and said his shocking thoughts, I suspect that there are spies of the heterogeneous religion in the Yuhei base. What? Ji Yufeng slowly analyzed, this encirclement and suppression operation is extremely covered. Even the Shenlong Club knows very little about it. The temporary team members don't know the details of the mission. However, the heterogeneous religion in Lannan City was able to set up many traps and counterattack in advance. Ji Yufeng recalled the zombie monsters in the entire building of the entertainment club, that handwriting cannot be arranged in a short time. All signs indicate that there is a high possibility that there are spies of the heterogeneous religion among the top leaders of the base. Xiao Hanyan looked thoughtful, do you have a suspect in mind? Ji Yufeng shook his head. Wei Ying sighed and said, I didn't expect that with the redemption plan coming, there are still so many hidden dangers around Yuhei. Ji Yufeng suddenly asked, was that Mu Qiu brought back to the base by Wei Ling er? What? Do you suspect that he has problems? Xiao Hanyan's impression of Mu Qiu is just that he is a gifted elemental awakener. Although he has great potential for development, his current strength is limited and he is not of much use for the time being. Wei Ying explained, Mu Qiu is a survivor I found in the ruins of the city when I led troops to hunt down the Flame Demon Lord. After that, I observed him for a period of time and found nothing unusual. Wei Ying knew that Mu Qiu was brought back to the base by his sister, and later joined Wei Linger's team. Subconsciously, he didn't want Mu Qiu to have any problems. He is a twin power user. Twin power user. Even Xiao Hanyan couldn't sit still now. She also understood what a twin power user meant. Only one person among 100,000 or even a million people will have a truly gifted awakener. If nothing unexpected happens, this Mu Qiu will definitely grow into a destructive existence in the future. At that time, another guardian will appear in Yuhei base, which also means that the original three-legged situation in Yuhei will be completely reversed. The three forces in Yuhei base originally possessed destructive terrifying power. They were the guardians who protected the safety of the city, but they were also the powerful weights for the three forces to restrain each other. Xiao Hanyan had long been disgusted with Shen Glonghui's repeated acts of disrupting the order of Yuhei, but under the pressure of Wang Deipen's destructive strength, even Xiao Hanyan could do nothing about it. If more resources were poured into cultivating a destructive twin, Xiao Hanyan believed that the balance of Yuhei base would be completely broken. The appearance of Mu Qiu gave Xiao Hanyan, who was troubled by Shen Glonghui, the cancer of Yuhei, hope. At this moment, Ji Yufeng slowly walked to the window, narrowed his eyes and looked down at the peaceful and stable safety zone below, muttering, there is only one thing I can be sure of, his strength is definitely not as simple as it seems on the surface. In the private room of an underground bar in the Yuhei safety zone, Wang Hao was hugging a woman with revealing clothes, and suddenly heard his men outside the house calling, Brother Hao, the boss wants you to have a celebration banquet together. Go ahead, just say I'm not feeling well and need to rest. Wang Hao's impatient voice came from inside the house, and the people outside the door seemed to be used to it, and the footsteps gradually faded away. In the dim and gloomy room, Wang Hao looked at the girl who had been tortured unconscious, but the gloom on his face did not fade away. Damn it! A bunch of useless trash. The belt in his hand hit the bed heavily, and Wang Hao began to curse and curse. He still hasn't figured out how to explain the death of his men to Wang Deipen. Especially Jin Xiong was deeply loved by Wang Deipen. If Wang Deipen knew that his capable general died in such an unclear way, Wang Hao would definitely suffer a lot. He. Just when Wang Hao was angry and hesitant, a hoarse and gloomy voice came from the shadow of the corner. Wang Hao was shocked and saw a hooded figure in a purple robe suddenly appear in the deep corner. Want revenge? You, who are you? Before Wang Hao could react, the purple-robed man suddenly threw the incomplete figure in his arms to the ground. We can help you. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the Flame Demon Lord. Author, MOCNU. Chapter 94. The first ray of sunlight in the morning shone through the large French windows, and the soft light accompanied by the warm breeze blew into the villa on the second floor. The broken hair on Mu Qiu's forehead was blown by the breeze, and he slowly opened his eyes. Turning his head subconsciously, Mu Qiu felt a wet and sticky touch on his side face. I saw a girl with long pink hair clinging to Mu Qiu's back. Mu Qiu turned his head and his cheek was just close to the girl's rosy lips. Her delicate face showed a sleepy face, but I don't know what she dreamed about, and a pool of crystal saliva flowed from the corner of her mouth. The rabbit doll that was originally used as a pillow was squeezed between the two people at this moment, and Mu Qiu replaced the doll's position and was hugged tightly by the girl like an octopus. Mu Qiu couldn't help but smile bitterly, raised his hand to move Yu Ichi's white arm aside, stood up lightly and put on his clothes. Yu now lives in the two-story villa that Wei Ling gave him, which is close to the mountains and rivers. Although it is small, it has everything. The elegant and unique decoration is unique. In addition to the living room, the first floor also has a normal dining room and kitchen, a study, a bar, and a utility room. The master bedroom and the second bedroom on the second floor are spacious and comfortable. However, the place where Yu often stays is the floor-to-ceiling window balcony of the master bedroom on the second floor. Here you can overlook the overview of the entire Yuhei base, which is really refreshing. This is also one of the reasons why Yu came to the human base. Compared with the ugly and dirty zombie heretics, humans can enjoy life. Why not choose a more comfortable life? Yu came to the kitchen on the first floor, picked up the kitchen utensils, and placed the ingredients exchanged yesterday on the table. He started to make breakfast with ease. Yu didn't know how to cook originally, but the Flame Demon Lord had swallowed a strange ability called culinary expertise. This ability, which seems useless among the awakened, can help Yu improve his meals. Yu had been eating those canned foods without nutrition for a long time in Lannan City, and he had lost his appetite. So he decided to improve his meals himself after returning. The limited ingredients seemed to have a variety of flavors in Yu's hands. Even the chefs who have been in the industry for many years would be amazed and ashamed of themselves after watching his smooth operation. After a while, a unique fragrance that made people's appetites grow has filled the room. There was a sound of footsteps coming down the wooden stairs. Yu, who was wearing an apron, turned around and happened to see Yuichi, who was wearing a white dress and had a delicate face like an angel. At this moment, the girl obviously looked like she had not woken up yet. She rubbed her sleepy eyes with her delicate hands. She was still holding the half-human high rabbit doll in her arms. She yawned and murmured, "Chu, have you eaten? I woke up just in time. I just finished it." Chu smiled and squinted his eyes. He gently rubbed the girl's pink hair, took off the apron around his waist, and put the hot food on the dining table. The breakfast was simple, a bowl of carefully made fresh noodles with a lava poached egg, and hot bread and milk on the side. But despite such a monotonous food, Chu's ingenious cooking skills still made it fragrant, colorful, fragrant, and delicious. Just smelling it makes people salivate. www. Chu almost finished a bowl of noodles in no time. For many ordinary people, it is extremely rare to be able to eat such a bowl of hot vegetarian noodles in the end times. Seeing Yui holding chopsticks to pick up noodles stiffly, but still not eating a few bites, Chu laughed out loud. Yui was not proficient in using chopsticks, so Chu grabbed Yui's delicate jade hand and patiently taught her the long-standing food culture of China. After breakfast, Chu looked at the pink-haired girl who was eating with satisfaction, squinted his eyes and smiled, "Okay, it's almost time for us to go to the appointment." Morning life is a unique experience for Chu. Different from the bloodthirsty killing in the sea of corpses and blood, it brings Chu a faint sense of warmth. Although Chu does not hate such a life, it is destined not to be his main color in the end of the world. Holding Yui's smooth and white hand, the two strolled in the street. The streets of Yuhei Base are still the same as when Chu first came. In this relatively safe central area, the streets are crowded with shabby tents stationed on both sides. These are the residences of some human survivors. The population of Yuhei Base is as high as tens of thousands, most of whom are human survivors rescued from the urban ruins. Elites from all walks of life are mixed in it. Those who help the construction of the base are naturally well paid, but this is naturally only a small number of people. Many celebrities and elites before the end of the world are now reduced to sleeping on the streets, relying on relief food to survive, and their only hope is to do some hard labor tasks issued by the base in exchange for meager rewards. A few humans will choose to try their luck in the ruins outside. If they are lucky enough to kill a D-level or even C-level zombie and seize the crystal core, it is tantamount to making a fortune. But there are too few ordinary people with such courage, and even fewer come back alive after leaving the base. Mu Chiu has a handsome face, and walking on the road with a pink-haired girl who looks like she came out of a comic book is even more eye-catching. The Golden Boy and the Jade Girl are no exception. Of course, there are no blind people here to make trouble. After all, it is rare to find humans who can dress so neatly in the apocalypse, even among those powerful awakened ones. In the eyes of people who have experienced the vicissitudes of the end of the world, Mu Chiu and Yu Chi are obviously noble beings that cannot be provoked. When these survivors pass by, they retreat 3 steps and dare not offend these 2 powerful awakeners. Ignoring the strange looks of the people around him, Mu Chiu walked on the street like a walk after dinner. Soon, he arrived at the originally agreed place, a bus stop near the street of the villa complex. There was already a petite figure standing there. Today, Wei Linger was wearing a loose pink sweater and a pair of jeans. At first glance, she was just a high school girl with fashionable clothes. How could she look like a captain-level figure of the awakening team? Mu Chiu, Sister Chi. Seeing the appearance of Mu Chiu and Yu Chi, Wei Linger first waved her hand and ran over with a happy face. Wei Linger pinched 11 Chi's delicate cheek affectionately, and teased, "How is it? Are you used to living with Mu Chiu? Did he bully you?" Mu Chiu smiled bitterly and spread his hands. "Why do you think I'm so dirty?" Wei Linger's pretty face was rosy, and she put her waist in her hands and snorted, "Believe you, you big-headed ghost, none of you men are good." Just then, a gentle voice came from the bus stop. "Sorry, I'm late because of something." Hearing this gentle and pleasant voice, Mu Chiu's mouth corners rose, and he looked at the source of the voice with a smile. Sure enough, a familiar and beautiful figure appeared in front of Mu Chiu. "I didn't expect that we would meet again so soon, my Madame Lu. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord." Author, Mo Xian Yu. Chapter 95. Who is this beautiful mature figure standing in front of me if not Lu Qingfei? Lu Qingfei seemed to be in much better spirits. Her shawl-like hair was tied up into a single ponytail. The black tube top straps perfectly wrapped the fullness of her chest, and her straight and slender legs were exposed. Wear a thin shirt. Different from her previous mature dress, Lu Qingfei now looks more youthful and beautiful, but her elegant and gentle temperament is still difficult to conceal. Concubine Lu Qing was also surprised when she saw Mu Chiu with Wei Linger, and even her expression became a little unnatural. "Linger, why is Mu Chiu here?" Concubine Lu Qing was still brooding about Mu Chiu's forced kiss at the lakeside. She was ashamed to speak out every time she thought about it, which made her subconsciously want to escape. Somehow, she always had a subtle feeling about that matter in her heart, not to mention disgust. She even dreamed of the soft touch when their lips and teeth met several times. Lu Qingfei came from a medical family and had been conservative since she was a child. When she was with Su Feng, let alone kissing, they even held hands very rarely. Mu Chiu's domineering way of snatching away her first kiss not only shocked concubine Lu Qing, but also left a deep mark on her heart. The feeling that she had never experienced before, mixed with some taboo stimulation, made her blush and her heart beat wildly, and her mind had never been so flustered as it was now. So Lu Qingfei chose to escape as expected, but she didn't expect to meet Mu Chiu again so soon. "Sister Qingfei." Wei Linger obviously didn't notice anything was wrong with concubine Lu Qing, so she stepped forward and hugged concubine Lu Qing's arm, saying coquettishly, "What does it matter? I didn't think that Mu Chiu hadn't been to the exchange office yet, so I just took him to see it this time." Mu Chiu also stepped forward at this time, with a smile that seemed strange to concubine Lu Qing. "I didn't expect that we would meet again so soon, Mrs. Lu." When Mu Chiu said the word madam, her tone was half a beat slower. The sensitive Lu Qingfei knew that Mu Chiu was deliberately teasing her, so she explained with a blushing face. "No, don't call me madam. Wei Ling, who didn't know the truth, thought that Lu Qingfei was still feeling sad about her husband's death, so she quickly changed the subject and said, okay, let's go over quickly and see what new goodies are on the shelves of the exchange office this time. The harvest this time is so rich, it should be enough for us to buy some good equipment. After saying that, Wei Ling took the arms of Chi and Lu Qingfei and walked in a certain direction. Mu Qiu followed behind, looking at concubine Lu Qing slightly embarrassed back with a bit of amusement in her eyes. The villa area where Mu Qiu lives is located in the center of the Yuhe base. It is the area with the most concentrated resources in the entire Yuhe. Some important infrastructure facilities have been restored from here. It didn't take long for the four of them to arrive at the destination of their trip, a tall building with the name Exchange House hanging on it. The building was lined with gun-wielding guardsmen, and Mu Qiu could even feel that there were no less than 5 A-level awakened people guarding the area. Don't listen to the rustic name of this exchange house, but it can contain treasures of resources that all search teams dream of. Guns and ammunition, weapons and ammunition, pharmaceuticals and equipment are all sold here, and the currency to buy them is not gold and silver banknotes or crystal cores, but merit points obtained by searching for resources and completing tasks. Walking into this building called the Exchange House, what you see is a hall that is as big as an underground parking lot. Both sides of the hall are hung with arms and weapons that can drive military enthusiasts crazy, while some valuable resource treasures are placed in glass booths and placed in the most conspicuous place in the hall. There are surveillance cameras in all directions. Comprehensive surveillance without blind spots. This exchange house was founded by Zhang Qinggui, one of the 3 parties in the base. He started his business through the Chamber of Commerce before the end of the world. After the end of the world, he used his method of managing the Chamber of Commerce to manage the resources of the base, Wei Ling said slowly. Su explained. These guns and ammunition were all taken out by Sister Hanyan from Yuhe's arsenal. Relatively speaking, they can be exchanged in the exchange office. The price of a rifle is only 10 merit points. As Wei Ling narrated, Mu Qiu lost interest in the guns and weapons hanging on the wall, and instead focused on the goods in the booth. The glass booth is made of bulletproof materials, and the goods inside are also all kinds of strange. There are blue and yellow energy crystal cores, weird-looking potions, and even some modern high-tech products similar to drones. Mu Qiu stopped next to a booth. He observed that there was a handle-shaped technological equipment inside the booth. If he remembered correctly, this was the powerful laser sword in Ji Yufeng's hand. Its price is also marked below, and it actually has 1,000 merit points. Mu Qiu secretly smacked his tongue. If he remembered correctly, an A-level blue crystal core was only worth 50 merit points. Although this laser sword was powerful, its price alone had already dissuaded many awakened people. Wei Ling noticed Mu Qiu's gaze and explained, this laser sword is the result of a transaction between Yuhe base and another high-tech base. But you have also seen that the price is too expensive and no one can afford it. So far, only Ji Yufeng has exchanged too. Mu Qiu nodded. With Ji Yufeng's swift spatial ability, he could indeed accumulate a lot of merit points. Following Wei Ling in the hall, Mu Qiu could feel several waves of supernatural power monitoring them. It seemed that the Yuhe base really valued the value of this exchange office and sent so many powerful people to guard it. As the footsteps went deeper, suddenly, Mu Qiu's heart was shocked. As if he had noticed something, he turned his head suddenly, staring at a booth at the deepest part of the hall. There was a needle of fiery red potion, which seemed to contain rich vitality, like a dazzling spark flickering and jumping. Mu Qiu's pupils shrank slightly, and a strong tremor rose in his heart. He was very familiar with this kind of energy fluctuation that was so hot that it seemed to burn everything in the world. This familiar energy fluctuation came from Flame Demon. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 96. Feeling the familiar burning sensation coming from the front, Muchu's usually calm expression was instantly moved. He felt the energy fluctuations of the flame demon in his body in the potion in the booth. Seeing Muchu stop in front of the red glass booth in the front, Wei Ling couldn't help but stop. The girl seemed to come here often and knew the equipment in the hall very well. She explained, "What's wrong, Muchu? Are you interested in this flame demon potion? This is a precious S-level item." S-level. Wei Ling shook her finger and said, "Yes, just like the level classification of awakened people, these weapons and props that have been improved to a certain extent also have different levels. The potion in front of you was developed by Sister King Fi's teacher after the base captured the flame demon lord and extracted the crystal core from his body. I heard that even ordinary people have a chance to gain flame-related superpowers after taking this potion, but I heard that superpowers obtained by this method have great side effects." Wei Ling patiently explained, but Muchu seemed to have not heard it, and quietly looked at the red needle in front of him. www. He finally understood why the Flame Demon Lord, who was also at the top level among the S-level heretics, was hunted down by a guard eagle. Being seriously injured was one of the reasons, but the more important problem was that the crystal core in its body was dug out. Muchu knew that the most fundamental ability of his body came from the supernatural power called devouring. This supernatural power called devouring is invisible and intangible, but it spreads to every cell in his body. There is no so-called energy crystal core at all. In other words, every part and every cell of his body can be regarded as an unfathomable energy crystal core. After the Yuhei base captured the Flame Demon Lord, it extracted the crystal core that condensed the power of fire in his body. But it was also the crystal core with the most energy in his body, which was sufficient to transform from the invisible and intangible supernatural energy into a solid flame crystal core. Muchu narrowed his eyes and looked at the potion in front of him that was of the same origin as himself, wondering what he was thinking. At this time, Lu Qingfei also came over, met Muchu's gaze, and explained, "The teacher once said that the Flame Demon Lord is the most special S-level existence he has ever seen. He has never seen a zombie heretic who can survive after the crystal core is dug out. The crystal core is the most core part of the body of infected people like zombie heretics, and all the supernatural energy in the body is gathered there." Lu Qingfei also had a puzzled look on her face. Now the crystal core is still stored in the laboratory and is analyzed and studied by the teacher, but except for this potion after extracting energy, the rest of the progress is still nothing. Are you interested in this flame demon potion? But your supernatural power is ice of the same element system, which may conflict with the effect of the potion. Lu Qingfei looked at Muchu. The reason why no one dared to buy this injection of potion for so long, in addition to its own high price, is more because of its uncontrollable side effects and unknown risks. After all, no awakener dares to use his own life as an experimental subject. Laboratory. Muchu calmed his restless heart and smiled at Lu Qingfei calmly, "No, I won't buy it." After that, Muchu looked meaningfully at the patrolling guards around, and some invisible areas where the awakened people guarding the exchange office were hidden. "After all, it's something that belongs to me, and I should take it back myself." The offensive words instantly shocked Lu Qingfei's heart, and then her pretty face flushed. After the last incident, Lu Qingfei was extremely sensitive to Muchu's behavior, and the words just now made her think about it. Lu Qingfei's eyes were flustered, and she immediately walked forward with nervous steps, saying, "Whatever you want." Muchu smiled slightly, not caring much. Finally, he looked at the S-level potion in front of him, and could faintly feel the breath of the flame demon in the hot lines on it. Before taking other people's things, think about the consequences you have to bear. Then Wei Linger and Lu Qingfei also chose their favorite props and equipment. Wei Linger chose a modified laser gun, which she could use to make up for her weak long-range ability. Lu Qingfei chose a superpower amplifier, which could increase her superpowers to a certain extent in a short time by putting in a crystal core, which was very helpful for her to treat patients. Wei Linger looked at Mu Qiu with empty hands, and thought that the latter had just arrived at the base and was reluctant to give up the merit points he had worked hard to accumulate. I couldn't help but remind him, Mu Qiu, if you have any items you like, you can bring them out. I still have some merit points here. Mu Qiu shook his head and chuckled, I came here to see the reserves in the Yuhei base, but I didn't expect there were some things that surprised me. As he said that, Mu Qiu habitually rubbed the hair of Yu Qi beside him, and said meaningfully, but don't worry, I will get it back soon. Seeing Mu Qiu say this, Wei Linger naturally had to give up. In her opinion, Mu Qiu wanted to. The four people walked out of the exchange office, and next to them were buildings full of technology. Mu Qiu looked at the tall buildings on the other side, and through the glass, he could vaguely see the experimental equipment on the upper floors. Mu Qiu asked, is this the laboratory of the base? Wei Linger nodded, this area belongs to the important infrastructure of the base, and the headquarters of the medical team are also in the laboratory. Before he finished speaking, there was suddenly a clear sound of stepping on the ground not far away, from far to near. Just by listening to the sound, he could tell that there were no less than dozens of people coming. Looking up, I saw a group of guards wearing black uniforms and holding guns in their hands, walking quickly towards a few people in an orderly manner. The leader was a man in his 30s or 40s, with a square and resolute face, and an eagle-shaped badge on his chest that was very eye-catching. Mu Qiu vaguely remembered this man. When Ma Kun framed her in public, it was this man who came forward to take her away on behalf of the law enforcement team. It seemed that his name was Li Amber. Li Amber walked out of the team with a solemn expression, and his target was Mu Qiu among the four. Li Anbei first nodded to Wei Linger, then took out a pair of handcuffs from his arms, looked at Mu Qiu and said, Mu Qiu, you are suspected of murdering the awakened people of the search team in the ruins, which seriously violated the order of the base. Come with us. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 97. As soon as Li Anbei finished speaking, everyone present, including Wei Linger and Lu Qingfei, trembled. The search team they were part of was framed by Ma Kun in the ruins of the city, and almost all members were buried in the belly of the zombies. In the end, it was Mu Qiu who turned the tide and single-handedly fought many A-level beings, including Jin Xiong, to rescue the search team, and finally wiped out all of Ma Kun's team. Originally, this matter had been deeply buried in the hearts of the team members and they planned to find out about it, but even Lu Qingfei did not mention it to the outside world. They didn't understand how this was leaked. Li, Uncle Li, what are you talking about? Wei Linger looked at Li Anbei with a forced smile on her face. Li Amber is the captain of the guard team and is under the command of her brother Wei Ying, so Li Amber is quite polite to Wei Linger. Li Anbei glanced at Wei Linger and said, after reports, Mu Qiu was suspected of killing the awakened people in the base. The evidence is now conclusive. The guards will arrest Mu Qiu in accordance with the order of the base. Wei Linger hurriedly waved her hand and explained, Uncle Li, you misunderstood, it's like this. Mu Qiu's murder of his companions has become a fact. Linger, you'd better stop defending him. At this moment, a sneer came from behind the guard. I saw a slightly stout young man walking slowly from a distance, followed by a group of men dressed as gangsters. This young man with a sharp tone and an arrogant demeanor turned out to be Wang Deipen's younger brother Wang Hao. Wang Hao glanced at Wei Linger, and spoke slowly in the latter's disgusted eyes, my Ma Kun team never came back after going out for search this time. I just learned yesterday that all of their team died in the ruins outside the city. With Wang Hao's high-pitched voice, some passers-by also gathered around, looking at the arriving guards and pointing. The real murderer who caused the death of their team was not the many zombie monsters outside the city, nor the wandering awakened ones, but you, Mu Qiu. Wang Hao suddenly pointed to Mu Qiu, who was wearing a black trench coat in front of him. Now I apply for the law enforcement team to come forward to punish this human traitor who killed his comrades in the base. Wang Hao was very smart. From the beginning, he positioned Mu Qiu as a human traitor who ignored the base's laws and killed others who were also out on the search team. Murdering other search teams in the ruins of the city is the biggest taboo in Yuhei, because it is related to the safety of the search team when they go out to search. Once this high hat is worn, even if Mu Qiu is a rare elemental awakener, he will definitely be punished by the base. At worst, he was expelled from the Jade Sea and wandered in the ruins. At worst, he was killed on the spot by Ji Yufeng, who was enforcing strict orders. Wang Hao admired his own strategy more and more. He used Yuhei's law of order to overwhelm Mu Qiu, so that he could kill a potential elemental awakener for his elder brother without losing any blood. How could Wei Ling'er not see Wang Hao's conspiracy, but Wang Hao's confusion of right and wrong made her face turn red with anger. Wei Ling'er chopped her foot. "You're talking nonsense, it's obviously." Just when Wei Ling'er was about to tell the truth of the matter, a burst of exclamation suddenly came from the crowd behind Wang Hao. A mutilated figure was supported by Wang Hao's men and walked slowly towards the crowd. Along with this person's actions, rapid breathing sounds were heard from passers-by around him. How could it be him? Wei Ling'er covered her mouth in horror. She couldn't believe that this person who was supposed to die in the zombie's mouth would actually appear in the Yuhei base. Kong Hua. A taboo name in the team came out of Lu Qingfei's mouth. Her eyes trembled. She also couldn't believe that Song Kong Hua would return to the base alive. Even Mu Qiu was a little surprised. He also didn't expect that this person could survive. The person who was being supported and walked in front of them was Song Kong Hua, who had half of his body chopped off by Mu Qiu. In everyone's mind, he should have been buried in the belly of the corpse. But at this time, Song Kong Hua's appearance was extremely miserable. The legs and arms on the right half of his body had long since disappeared. There were dark red blood scabs on the first layer of his body. Even his head had been cut off out of thin air. The remaining eye was filled with resentment and hatred. At this moment, Song Kong Hua no longer had the arrogance that he had before. Instead, he had this inhuman shape, as if he was an evil ghost who had just crawled out of the hell. Song Kong Hua was being helped up, but Wang Hao looked at Mu Qiu and his group, with a scheming smile on his face. "Song Kong Hua, as a member of this team, you should know what happened, right?" Song Kong Hua's pupils shrank suddenly. At this moment, he no longer cared about everything he had. The only purpose that kept him alive was to take revenge on the culprit who made him look like this, Mu Qiu. He raised his only remaining arm, half opened his mouth, and his voice was extremely hoarse. "It's Mu Qiu, he killed Ma Kun's team, and after I witnessed everything, he wanted to get rid of me." As he said that, Song Kong Hua looked at Mu Qiu with a look of deep resentment, which was actually mixed with a bit of perverted pleasure of getting revenge. In his opinion, as long as Mu Qiu is targeted by the law enforcement team, there is absolutely no chance of Mu Qiu surviving. Sure enough, after hearing Song Kong Hua's testimony, Li Amber once again understood the seriousness of the matter. Attacking other awakened people in the ruins because of personal grudges is a heinous crime in Yuhei. Concubine Lu Qing looked at Mu Qiu worriedly, biting her lower lip that had turned white subconsciously, with a lingering look of guilt on her face. Back in the ruins, it was precisely because of her repeated protection that Mu Qiu finally let go of Song Kong Hua. If it weren't for herself, Mu Qiu wouldn't be in such a dangerous situation. The momentary kindness turned out to be such a result. For the first time, Lu Qingfei questioned the beliefs she had implemented for a long time. "Mu Qiu, do you have anything else to say now? In fact, No matter what Mu Chiu said, it would not help. Lianbei had already made up his mind to make Mu Chiu submit to the law first, and the rest would naturally be dealt with by Yu Hai's iron law. He. Mu Chiu, who was the center of attention, suddenly chuckled. The methods of your master and servant are exactly the same. They are all such mindless and stupid tricks. The familiar scene reminded Mu Chiu of the scene when Ma Kun framed him. Mu Chiu glanced at the people in front and asked, "Do you know what really eliminated Ma Kun and the others?" Li Amber frowned and felt bad. He had seen similar scenes before. Its power. One force can break all laws. In the face of absolute power, all conspiracies and tricks will be in vain. Being framed. It doesn't exist, it's just killing. Suddenly, a ball of crystal blue mist appeared in Mu Chiu's hand, and two dense rain-like ice shuttles struck Song Kong Hua and Wang Hao like arrows and lightning. Not good. Lianbei, who was prepared in his heart, quickly stood sideways in front of Song Kong's incarnation. His big calloused hands instantly turned into eagle claws, trying to block the ice shuttle that was hitting like bullets. There was a whoosh, and blood spattered. Song Kong Hua's broken body behind him was already covered with blood-colored holes, and even his head had exploded and was no longer alive. Lianbei screamed, covering the palm of his hand that had been punctured with bleeding holes, and looked at Mu Chiu in horror. He couldn't believe that in just half a month, he couldn't resist Mu Chiu's casual blow. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, Mo Xian Yu. Chapter 98. At the same time, another wave of ice shuttles hit Wang Hao like missiles in a flash. Wang Hao still had a treacherous smile on his face, and the next moment he saw the ice cones in the sky constantly enlarging in his pupils. His fat face instantly revealed a look of horror. Just when the ice shuttle was about to penetrate Wang Hao's head, a deep black flow suddenly surged in the shadow under Wang Hao's feet. The black shadow like ink suddenly swept up from the ground. Immediately, a torrent of ink wall rose up in front of Wang Hao, directly blocking the dense ice shuttles like arrows. A figure covered in black emerged from Wang Hao's shadow. Surprisingly, this person's whole body was as black as ink, and it was even impossible to tell whether he was wearing clothes or not. Even his face seemed to be covered with a black mask, and only from his exposed eyes and white teeth could he vaguely see that he was a human figure. Wang Hao's forehead was sweating and his face was dazed. In this moment of life and death, he had not yet reacted to what happened. He had never thought that Mu Chiu was so bold that he dared to kill the awakened people of the base in broad daylight in front of the law enforcement team. It was not until the black figure appeared in front of him that Wang Hao came to his senses, panting slightly, and stammering, "Ying, brother Ying." The black figure did not respond, but instead looked at Mu Chiu with his white teeth bared. The black shadow had a playful smile in his eyes, but his tone of voice was extremely low. "You are very brave, but I hope your strength is as big as your courage." Then, the black shadow turned into a pool of ink-like shadow again, immersed in the ground. The dark shadow on the ground that was visible to the naked eye gradually dimmed. The next second, clusters of dark spots suddenly appeared on the ground around Mu Chiu, who was standing in the distance. The dark shadow spots on the ground expanded rapidly, and a person-high dark wall rose from all directions to tightly surround Mu Chiu and Yu Qi beside him. Seeing Mu Chiu and Yu Qi in a desperate situation, Wei Ling'er and Lu Qingfei looked anxious. Wei Ling'er even asked for help from Lianbo, who was standing by, but the latter slowly shook his head. In Lianbo's opinion, Mu Chiu had violated the order of Yu He many times, and was a cancer in the base. Moreover, the strength of the black shadow was far beyond his reach. Wang Hao's face was full of fierce smiles. In his opinion, being entangled by the black shadow man, Mu Chiu had basically been sentenced to death. The reason was that this black shadow man with a blurred face was a capable general under his elder brother Wang Daipen, and his strength was far more than Jin Xiang, who was beside Wang Hao. This Black Shadow man was like Ji Yufeng, a true S-level awakener. Wang Hao didn't know the real name of the Black Shadow man. He had been in this dark and blurry appearance since he met him. People around him called him Shadow. Shadow's ability is a powerful superpower called Moying. It can transform itself into a shadow and transform the shadow into various means of attack. Go to hell. Wang Hao laughed excitedly. He couldn't wait to ask Wang Daipen for credit. Mu Qiu suddenly heard a burst of rapid wind breaking in his ears. Mu Qiu looked up and saw a black shadow holding a steel fork and stabbing him fiercely at the center of his eyebrows. At the same time, the black wall that tightly wrapped Mu Qiu also made a violent buzzing sound and began to expand rapidly. This is a sign of an impending explosion. With a loud bang, like a bomb exploding, the thick black smoke instantly blurred everyone's vision, and the aftermath of the explosion even rolled up and shattered the blue bricks and tiles around. The onlookers were all amazed at the powerful strength of the S-level awakeners. Even an A-level awakener would find it difficult to survive such an explosion. Mu Qiu, Wei Linger and Lu Qingfei looked anxiously at the center of the explosion. Even though they were quite confident in Mu Qiu's strength, the other party was at the same level as Ji Yufeng. Li Anbei, who was standing aside, sighed. It was the first time he encountered such a stubborn awakener who was unwilling to accept the punishment of the law enforcement team even if he died. What a pity, a rare elemental system. Shaking his head, Li Anbei took out a walkie-talkie from his waist and was about to report the situation here to his superiors. Captain, Captain. The exclamation of a guard beside him interrupted Li Anbei's action. Li Anbei turned his head impatiently, but what he saw was a scene that he would never forget. What is that? Not only Li Anbei and the guard team, but also many survivors watching around were looking at the shocking scene in front of them with horror. A beam of white light curtain shot up from the ground in the distance, breaking through the thick black smoke produced by the explosion around. Even in the daytime, the dazzling light deeply shocked everyone present. A huge column of light shot straight into the sky in the center of the entire Yuhei base, like a roaring silver dragon breaking through the clouds. At this moment, everyone in the Yuhei base saw this miraculous scene, and as the light column continued to rise, silver-white silk began to entangle around the light column, as if it was a supreme ladder leading to the sky. Some kind of heavenly sound that penetrated into the mind was faintly transmitted to everyone's ears, as if the laws of the world were cheering the birth of a new king. When the black smoke on the ground in front of them dispersed, someone looked at the center of the smoke with trembling eyes. I saw a tall, handsome man wearing a black windbreaker, holding a beautiful woman in his arms, and holding a ferocious giant sword more than 10 feet long in his right hand. On their bodies, there was still the dazzling silver-white light that stunned everyone's eyes just now. There was silver-white steel wrapped around the giant sword, and a slender black steel fork was colliding fiercely with the giant sword, but it was unable to break through at all. The dark shadow figure floated in mid-air, with eye-catching white beads of sweat flowing on his forehead, but there was lingering horror in his eyes. He just saw clearly that the man in front of him actually took out such a ferocious giant sword from the white hole on the woman's chest, and then an astonishing wave of energy immediately attacked the shadow. This energy wave has reached the same S level as him, and the amazing energy emanating from it is actually faintly more powerful than him. Immediately afterwards, he saw the corners of the mouth of the young man in front of him raised slightly. He first glanced at the girl in his arms tenderly, then looked up at the shadow with a playful look in his eyes. Next, we can have some fun. Xiaohei. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, Mo Xianyu. Chapter 99. Shadow's pupils instantly dilated, and the strong supernatural power fluctuations on the void sword rushed over, followed by the aggressive silver-white experience. The black steel fork in his hand began to tremble violently, until it trembled to the extent that even he could not control it. The steel fork was instantly covered with white cracks, cracking inch by inch. Shadow looked at the nothingness in his hand in disbelief. He couldn't believe that the black shadow steel fork condensed by his supernatural power was so easily destroyed. But he didn't have time to be shocked, and the semi-arc-shaped silver-white streaks were already attacking him. Shadow subconsciously raised a black shadow torrent, and with a thought, this shadow stream had transformed into a solid shadow wall. The silver-white streaks as fast and dense as a sword hit the shadow wall, but in an instant, the shadow wall that was difficult to destroy even with a laser sword had collapsed inch by inch. Seeing this, Shadow flashed and turned into a shadow before the shadow wall collapsed, shrinking in the ground in embarrassment. What is the origin of that kid? The shadow hiding underground couldn't figure out why the A-level awakener the previous second could be upgraded to an S-level terrifying existence in an instant. Fortunately, the biggest advantage of my ability is that I can hide in the shadow space underground. No matter how powerful he is, he can't find it. The next second, the shadow's eyes froze instantly. With a swish, a huge cut was opened on the shadow's shoulder, and blood gushed out like a fountain. In an instant, dozens of similar silver-white streaks had torn this shadow space apart. How is it possible? The shadow appeared in an area dozens of meters away from Mewtwo, covering his broken shoulder, looking at the black-clothed young man holding a giant sword, gasping for breath. The sword energy swung from the sword could actually tear the space and attack him directly. The shadow looked at the hideous giant sword in Mewtwo's hand with infinite fear. What level of weapon can achieve such amazing power, giving the user a significant increase in supernatural power while also having the powerful ability to break space? Mewtwo smiled slightly, turned around and handed the sleeping Yuchi in his arms to Wei Linger and Lu Qingfei, and slowly turned to the direction of Shadow and Wang Hao. Mewtwo twisted his neck and looked at Shadow with a playful look in his eyes. Who did you say was braver just now? Shadow's already dark face became even more gloomy, with a hint of anger in his eyes. Boy, don't think that you have the capital to be arrogant with the blessing of that weapon. In Shadow's view, Mewtwo's strength suddenly soared to this point, entirely because of the blessing of the giant sword in his hand. Although in a sense it is true. Shadow looked at Mewtwo with murderous intent in his eyes. Today, let you see what a true S-level awakener is. Shadow's figure merged into the shadow on the ground again, and disappeared from everyone's eyes the next moment. If the ground is compared to the ocean, then the shadow transformed by the shadow is like a ferocious shark swimming in the ocean. In the next second, no one knows where and how it will show its sharp fangs. Suddenly, the shadow in front of Mewtwo rolled, and a string of tough black spikes like bamboo shoots sprang out from under Mewtwo's feet like bamboo shoots after rain. Mewtwo's body flashed and he dodged the fatal blow in an instant, but a dark figure suddenly emerged in the dark of the building complex behind him. The shadow held the black dagger transformed by his ability and stabbed Mewtwo's chest. This time, his attack was extremely swift, and with the spikes as a cover, he was determined to win. Mewtwo looked at the dagger stabbing at his face, but did not dodge, but stood in place and stepped lightly. A cloud of icy blue mist shrouded Mewtwo's whole body. When the light blue halo dissipated, a pair of crystal blue close-fitting armor had already wrapped Mewtwo inside. Clang! The pitch-black blade and the ice blue armor intersected, and there was a sound of metal hitting metal, and sparks flew from the intense friction. Shadow was horrified to find that his shadow weapon, which had always been indestructible, could not break through this ice armor at all. Mewtwo swung the sword with his right hand, and several ice crystals shot out from his left hand. Shadow was instantly clumsy, and just as he dodged the slash of the domineering giant sword, his shoulder was pierced by several ice cones in the next second. Shadow rolled to the ground in a mess, and his originally black body was stained with fiery red blood. Mewtwo was wearing crystal blue armor, and the mark of the king on the chest of the armor was shining with brilliant light. Not far away was the incomplete body of Song Kong Hua. Shadow fell to the ground with wounds all over his body, and the shocking pool of blood that had not yet dried on the ground seemed to still announce the cruelty of the battle just now. Mu Chiu was holding a ferocious giant blade as tall as a person, looking around like a mighty king looking down on all directions. Many people were still in shock and had not recovered for a long time. When they were swept by Mu Chiu's eyes, they all lowered their heads in fear. Even Lianbo, who had always been upright, did not dare to act rashly after seeing Mu Chiu's powerful strength, and looked at each other with his guards. Wei Linger and Lu Qingfei looked at each other, and both saw shocked expressions in each other's eyes. Mu Chiu, when did he become so powerful? Although he had witnessed the power of Yue Qi's supernatural power before, Mu Chiu was able to hold a giant sword and fight many A-level beings including Jin Xiong. But the shadow was a genuine S-level awakener. Wei Linger didn't expect Mu Chiu to be able to deal with it so easily. Lu Qingfei was shocked, but she couldn't help but feel worried. Mu Chiu repeatedly challenged the order of the base. She didn't know what the consequences would be, but Lu Qingfei had already made up her mind to save Mu Chiu's life at all costs. On the other hand, Mu Chiu was holding a ferocious giant sword with creepy supernatural fluctuations in his hand, and slowly walked towards Wang Hao. "You, don't come over." Wang Hao never thought that the S-level shadow was not Mu Chiu's opponent. After seeing Mu Chiu's divine power, Wang Hao could no longer show his previous arrogance. At this moment, he looked at Mu Chiu who was approaching and his calves began to tremble. After all, Song Kong Hua's previous experience was there. This master really dared to kill people in public. Mu Chiu walked towards Wang Hao calmly, with a strange smile on his face. "Do you have anything else to say now?" Looking at Mu Chiu who was constantly approaching him, Wang Hao said tremblingly, "No. That was a misunderstanding just now, it was." Before he finished speaking, Mu Chiu had already raised the ferocious giant blade in his hand. At this moment, a white vortex appeared in front of Wang Hao, and a man with white hair and a white suit stood in front of Mu Chiu. Mu Chiu was not surprised by this person's appearance, but smiled and said, "Why? Do you want to compete with me too?" Ji Yufeng. A gorgeous dividing line. Because the author can only type 300 words, the thank you gift is placed here. Thank you. I typed for half an hour. Thanks. Emperor Luotian sent Bobo milk tea and love power. King Ju sent a reminder and a love letter. A revelat. Tang Lizu who loves taro cake. Little white radish head. Wanji Yudi sent a razor blade. Sent Bobo milk tea and 4 love power. Baung sent 2 reminders, a love letter and love power. User 10860660. Beiji Yudi. Bobo milk tea sent by me. A reminder for update sent by the ancients. 2 likes and a reminder for update sent by. 2 likes sent by Ruoshuosbo. Wanjiu Wei. A like and a love letter sent by Li Tuanan who loves rice noodle fish. A love letter and a love letter sent by Yi Yagon Jin. GNMO Juji. A miracle reappears. A love letter sent. Guying 33. Wei by Ba Buletin Fan. We never saw each other on a rainy night. The humble and pleasing Frankie's house. Time will travel far. Xiao who does not eat souls. Zi Shuji Luo. The wind against the current. A member of the Time Traveler Hunting Association. A like sent by Ri Tian Gang. Tai Hao. A like and love generation sent by Mo Xiao Mo. A love letter sent by me and Tai. A like and love generation. Shang Yi. The cute king. I was originally a light and surrendered to the enemy. Murong Ping from Chang'an City. Hong Xian. The death god doctor of the Zishan gang. The devil god of destruction. The 3 sent by Yaluo Senkai use love to generate electricity. Laughing to death, not panicking at all. Wozni Dai. Yejashura. The Zishan gang Nai Upai. Depression. Ji and Bo who likes shrimp orchid. The 2 sent by love to generate electricity. The 3 sent by love to generate electricity. MRS Fujiwara who likes June red. Fang Xingzi. What a trick. Hungtu who likes scallop cakes. Hua Miao from Sifang Pavilion. Apeng xiao ding dang, yin yang tong who likes kelp tea, gu hua who likes pickled cabbage, zishan gang majian zhenzun, wei wankai from the Gulf of Aden, a hoarding rat, Suan Li who likes grape iced black tea, the land of the dead, Shenji Tianzun, I really don't have a name to choose, Gongza Ziobai, likes to eat hamburgers. Mizu, the night sent by love to generate electricity. I have typed a total of 700 words. I will thank some friends tomorrow who I didn't have time to thank before the release. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MOCNU. Chapter 100. Appearing in front of Mu Chiu at this moment, the man in a white suit was none other than the captain of the law enforcement team, the S-Class Awakener known as the White God of Death Ji Yufeng. Ji Yufeng stepped out of the space, but first glanced around the messy place where blood was splattered. Not far away was the shadow lying on the ground. When Lian Bei saw Ji Yufeng's appearance, he felt as if he had seen his backbone, with a look of joy on his face and hurriedly said, "Captain." Wang Hao was also overjoyed, with a rare flattering smile on his face. "Captain Ji, look at this Mu Chiu who has seriously violated the order of the base by killing people in public. Please kill him as soon as possible." In his opinion, Mu Chiu had caused such a big disaster in the base, and even if he had superb combat power, he would not be Ji Yufeng's opponent. But Ji Yufeng's performance disappointed him. Feeling the powerful energy fluctuations coming from Mu Chiu in front of him, Ji Yufeng's face remained calm and he said with a natural expression, "I'm not here to fight with you. Someone wants to see you." After seeing Ji Yufeng's performance, Mu Chiu already had suspicions in her mind. The great void sword taller than a person in Mu Chiu's hand turned into silver-white beams of light and returned to the chest of the pink-haired girl behind her. Even the crystal blue armor covering her body disappeared into a sheet of ice mist in an instant. The black robe behind her was stirring. Mu Chiu chuckled and said, "Oh, since that gentleman invited me, I have to see it." Ji Yufeng nodded. He never liked to be sloppy when communicating with others. An invisible ripple shook around him, and the power of space instantly enveloped Mu Chiu. Ji Yufeng waved his hand and the white vortex swept across again. In an instant, the two people had disappeared without a trace, leaving only everyone standing there staring at each other. Ji Yufeng's power of space is extremely special, and his abilities in time and space are among the top powerful abilities even in the superpower system. Almost in the blink of an eye, Mu Chiu appeared in front of the office door of a high-rise building in the center of Yuhei Base. Ji Yufeng stepped forward and knocked gently on the office door, and a cold female voice with a hint of magnetism came from inside, "Come in." Ji Yufeng turned around and motioned for Mu Chiu to go in alone. Mu Chiu showed no restraint as she gently opened the door and walked in. Sitting in the office is a pretty woman in military uniform. Her hair is tied back and she looks capable. Her eyebrows add a dash of heroism to her appearance. Mu Chiu had just met this woman not long ago, the queen of Yuhei Base, Xiao Hanyan. When Xiao Hanyan saw Mu Chiu walking in, she raised her head slightly and motioned for Mu Chiu to sit down. Mu Chiu, on the other hand, didn't take any exception and found a comfortable sofa to sit down as if he was familiar with the road. Xiao Hanyan lowered his head and looked at the unknown document in his hand, and said, "I heard that you were discovered in the ruins of the city by Guard Eagle and the law enforcement team." This iceberg beauty who resounded throughout the Jade Sea suddenly straightened her eyebrows and looked at Mu Chiu. Mu Chiu looked directly at the iceberg beauty in front of him. He had already guessed what the other party's purpose was and said with a smile, "Yes, I just entered the Yuhei base not long ago." Xiao Hanyan stood in front of the table with his fingers together and suddenly asked, "According to my observations during this period, your strength is not weak, and you are even an extremely rare twin with superpowers. Your strength and powerful supernatural talents are enough to survive even in the ruins outside. Why did you live in one place for 2 years, and why did you choose to join the Yuhei base?" This seemingly simple conversation was actually no less than a serious interrogation with traps. When Mu Chiu first came to the base, he was just a talented elemental awakener. Although he had some potential, he was not worthy of Xiao Hanyan's attention. But now she discovered that Mu Chiu was not only super powerful, but also a twin with two powers, so she couldn't help but become suspicious. As long as Mu Chiu shows any abnormality, even if he is a twin with excellent talents and may even overthrow the Yuhei regime, Yuhei base will not let him stay. Mu Chiu answered unexpectedly quickly, with a smile on her face, "It's very simple. I am alone outside and have no one to rely on. Maybe sometime a high-level zombie heretic will appear and kill me after eating. Now that Yuhei is willing to take me in, I am naturally very grateful. Besides the awakened ones in the base are all talented, and they speak very nicely." Speaking of this, Mu Chiu suddenly touched the back of his head and showed a shy smile. "I love it here so much." Xiao Hanyan frowned. She didn't expect Mu Chiu's answer. "Is that your answer?" Mu Chiu put away her playful thoughts, looked at Xiao Hanyan meaningfully and said, "It's not what I came here for, it's what I did here, isn't it?" The two looked at each other and saw an unusual look in each other's eyes. The office suddenly fell into silence for a moment. After a while, the door of the office opened, and Mu Chiu slowly walked out with a leisurely expression. Before leaving, she even said hello to Ji Yufeng. Ji Yufeng walked into the office and saw Xiao Hanyan in a white military uniform standing in front of the window, looking at the buildings below with a thoughtful expression. "How about it? He is indeed very unusual." Xiao Hanyan gave a relatively conservative evaluation. Ji Yufeng nodded and told Xiao Hanyan what had just happened. After listening, Xiao Hanyan looked solemn. "You mean he has shown S-level strength? It should be the ability of the girl named Yu Qi, which was added to Mu Chiu to give him S-level ability." Xiao Hanyan noticed the key. This girl was also rescued from the ruins. After getting a positive answer, Xiao Hanyan frowned slightly. "Put this girl named Yu Qi in the list of observation objects, it would be best to know her origins." "What about this Mu Chiu?" Ji Yufeng knew that Xiao Hanyan had always wanted to cultivate another elemental awakener to replace Wang Daipen. With the rich resources of Yuhei base, it is not a problem to cultivate an S-level awakener in a short period of time. But Mu Chiu's actions are indeed too jumpy and arrogant. I don't understand his position yet. Continue to observe him for a while. As for Wang Daipen, I will deal with it." Xiao Hanyan's eyes moved, but she remembered the conversation just now. Xiao Hanyan didn't care much about Mu Chiu's violation of the base order. Doesn't that organization have its dark side? The Shenlong Society under Wang Daipen also frequently violated the base's laws, but didn't they live happily under Wang Daipen's reputation? Even the other person in charge of the base, Zhang Qinggui, the great philanthropist on the surface, has many unknown dirty sides in private. Rules are often listed for the weak and worthless. As long as Mu Chiu can show his value, Xiao Hanyan doesn't mind providing him with some flexibility on this basis.